Hi kittens, you're watching Tea and Tarot on the Four Queens YouTube channel. I'm Kellyanne and I'm planning to drink tea and talk about tarot as per usual. And the tea that I'm drinking this evening is a really lovely orange and vanilla infusion, which is quite spicy. My boyfriend bought it for me a week or so ago and it is really, really Christmassy. The smell of it, the taste of it is just Christmas all over. So I'm feeling quite festive, and as you can see from the cup that I have today, I'm really getting in the mood now. It's getting closer and closer, so I'm very excited. That is a good cup of tea. Okay, so I've just come back from my work Christmas conference. There is a big party tonight to follow the conference, and it's really going to be quite an insane bash. But because I have so much stuff to do and because I'm still feeling a little bit snotty, I've decided to forego. And I thought because everybody in the house is out, it might be a good idea to get down to some video making. So I want to talk a little bit about work and about being successful at work and showing a good performance at work and trying to prioritise work with the rest of your life. Because we had a few good talks today at my conference. I work for a company that are very focused on the people and how they feel about the job and kind of updating our software rather than the software we're using kind of thing. So there's lots of life coaching, lots of performance techniques and stuff like that. And we had a really quite well-known performance coach come in to speak to us for the last part of the day, and it was really quite inspiring and I enjoyed it quite a lot. So I would like to take a few of those ideas and mix and match them with a few of my own ideas that I've been thinking about recently. And this Tea and Tarot episode could potentially be useful for those of you who are starting out on your own business pathway. I mean, I will do a Tea and Tarot episode that fits in with that on a more in-depth level, but I do think that the subjects that are going to come up in this Tea and Tarot are going to be quite good for those amongst you who are planning to go into your own business or start your own enterprise. Those of you that are between jobs at the moment, those of you that may be thinking of going back to work. It's not just purely for people that are currently working the 9 to 5. I will get into a lot of stuff that will help you out with various different aspects of career, work, or forging a particular pathway that has to do with making money. The first card that I want to start with is the Page of Cups, and I wanted to start with this guy because he really is a representation in a lot of ways of how people connect and relate to each other, how we talk to each other, how our social circles are kind of made up, and how we conduct ourselves and present ourselves. And he's also an image of one's self-image. So basically he's a representation of how you see yourself, what you think of yourself, how you choose to present yourself to others and what you may choose to hold back, that kind of thing. So really when the Page of Cups comes around in any kind of context to do with work or career, I think it's always quite a good time to reflect on how we speak to other people within our business or how we connect and network, if that's what we have to do. Looking at the circle of colleagues that are around us and how we get on with them, and also just helping us to look at the challenges that sometimes come up as a result of working alongside other people whom we probably wouldn't normally choose as friends, and seeing those challenges as opportunities as well, opportunities to learn more about ourselves and how we conduct ourselves with decorum, and looking at our judgments of people and looking basically at how we connect with people in the work setting. So I think that most people, when they work for a living, they have to surround themselves with colleagues that they maybe experience a certain amount of friction with. There may be difficulties with them. Different managers have different management styles. Different colleagues have different ways of working and doing things. And as I said, they're not always the kind of people that one would choose to spend their own time with. It's very much a case of having to fit in to a team of very different people. If you're starting your own enterprise or you've been working on your own enterprise for a while, you will know that networking is absolutely paramount. Look at the ways in which you are connecting with the wider community around you. Look at how you connect with and get feedback from and get guidance from other people in your circle who are running the same kind of business as you. Are you too insular? Are you looking in the wrong places for your demographic? This kind of thing. So I do think that there's a chance with the Page of Cups to distinguish and explore how we behave around other people, how our relationships with other people affect how we are at work, and sometimes how we need to put some of that negativity on the back burner or think more in terms of the challenge that a certain colleague may present to us rather than in terms of, the irritation that comes with dealing with them. Because I do think that vibrational frequencies tend to match up, and that's very true in the environment I work in. If somebody comes in a shitty mood, that shitty mood tends to vibrate, it tends to push itself out. And by the same token, if you come in a crappy mood, that's going to vibrate out towards your colleagues, and everybody seems to sort of even out onto the same level at some point during the day. I think it's very important that work fits into the rest of your life sometimes, but I also think that when we're at work, we sometimes find ourselves adopting a persona that we may not adopt in other areas of our life. And sometimes that can be as a form of armour to help us to get through the environment that we're in, to help us to succeed in that environment. We sometimes have to slip into a slightly different skin. And even though it may initially feel uncomfortable, it can often be quite helpful as long as we don't forget that it's only a certain part of our persona, and as long as it's not damaging to us. And I think a lot of other people do the same thing as well. So I think it's about getting on with people for the sake of diplomacy and for the sake of having a smooth ride in the workplace, understanding how much of your true feelings you can actually bring out into the work environment, and how much you kind of need to sacrifice or compromise to have an easier day, and to make sure that everybody stays on that positive, even keel, if you like. And that moves me nicely onto the Nine of Swords, because the Nine of Swords is an image of anxiety, or of frustration, or of sadness, or depression. And what I really wanted to use this card for in this context, with this subject, is to think about how we often leave our own lives at the door when we go into work. And in fact, we're often encouraged to leave our own lives at the door. But that can be a very difficult thing to do. And often the moods and the experiences that we've had the night before, or that we're having in general in our lives, will bleed into the workplace and will make work into an even more unpleasant place to be. So sometimes it's very important to try and alter the mindset, and that can be very difficult. I think when you're having difficulties outside of work, in your life outside of that environment, it's very difficult to switch yourself off at the door and then walk in with a fresh head on. But the way of doing this and the way of dealing with it is, firstly, you need to accept that your work performance may be affected in some way by what goes on outside of the workplace, and you need to understand that about yourself, and you need to not berate yourself if your performance is not as good as it was a few weeks ago, because you're having a few issues at home, that kind of thing. Everything fluctuates, but the important thing to remember about going through a bad time in life is that work can be a perfect opportunity to actually forget about what's going on and to absorb yourself in something performance driven that is going to make you feel a certain amount of productivity and positivity. It's going to make you feel driven and motivated in some way that's going to allow you to temporarily just leave behind some of the things that are going on in the realm outside your work environment. So I do think that in a way it can be very difficult to hold down work when you're going through troubled times. But on the other hand, I think that can be taken and made into an advantage in a way that if you throw yourself into your work performance, you get those few hours where you're just concentrating on something else, and it can help you to alter your mindset. And I think that it's true when we go back to the idea of vibrational frequency that we do pass out our certain vibrations for other people to absorb or take hold of or feel negatively affected by. So I think that's another reason why we kind of need to, particularly if we work in a team and our goals are very team orientated, why we need to kind of think of work as an opportunity to put those things aside for a while. But that does begin with understanding that you are affected by what goes on in your outer life. So you need to address that as well. And the work-life balance as well needs to be maintained. I'm very big on work-life balance. I've blogged about it a couple of times, and I'll definitely do a video on it at some point, because I think work-life balance is so important. And I don't just think that it works one way or the other. I mean, I don't think it works in the way most people consider it to work, whereby we're always encouraging people not to go gung-ho with work, have more time for life, and, work to live, don't live to work, that kind of idea. And I think that's perfect, but I also think that if we always leave work at the lowest possible priority, then it will always be the most negative aspect of our lives. It's very, very easy to feel down about having to do something for a living. It's very easy to think of it as a negative part of your life, as something that you just need to get through so you can get on to what really matters to you. But at the end of the day, that's only going to negatively affect you. If you can manage to put yourself in a position in your mindset where you want to strive and reach your direction and show your motivation because you are inevitably going to feel more positive at the end, then you're doing something for yourself. You may not necessarily even be doing it for the company that you work for. You may not be climbing the career ladder there. What you're doing now may just be a springboard onto something else, or something to make the rent while you focus on what you really want to do. And that's absolutely fine, but that's not a reason to feel negatively about it. Absolutely every job in this world is valid in some context. Every single thing is woven into a tapestry. Every single little piece is part of a larger puzzle. So even if you are doing something that you feel is just a stepping stone or doesn't interest you in any way that's emotionally satisfying, it's still a very good idea to care about your performance, because it helps you inwardly. If you talk to yourself over and over again about how what you do for a living is just a waste of 8 hours, you just make rent with it and then you move on to what you really want to do, it's fine. You've accepted that it's not your passion, and that's a good thing. But the downside with that is that when you're at work, you're going to absolutely bloody loathe it. And who wants to go through that day after day? So I think it's best to always try and make the best out of your work situation, even if you are aware that it's not something you're going to be driven towards forever. Judgment is about change and transformation, and I've spoken about this card before, and I think it's fantastic for talking about and thinking about ideas with work, because if you're in a slump with work, or if you feel negatively about it, or if you know that you're not performing at your best and you'd like to be able to perform better but you're not really sure how you can, you obviously need to change something, whether it's your attitude, whether it's your beliefs about your ability, whether it's your reception towards other people and the way you communicate with them. You need to change something about your mindset, and that needs to be something that comes really from within and needs to be an informed decision. And the thing about change is that we are creatures of habit, and particularly when it comes to a work environment where we've become comfortable, we kind of know what we're doing now, we have the skills, we can manage the job. It's very difficult to try and change the mindset, you know. You can go on autopilot and do the job, you know, there's no argument about you being able to do it, or you wouldn't have won it at interview. But what we need to do is retrain our brain we need to look at those little aspects of us that always turn towards the negative, or the shoulds that we give ourselves. Today, the performance coach was telling us that quite often in the work environment, people should all over themselves, which I thought was quite interesting. You know, berating yourself because you're not showing your best side, berating yourself because you're not doing as well as you were last week. You just haven't brought the Zaza Zoo to work with you. So it's all about, well, I should be doing this and I should do this and I am capable of this, so I should feel like this. And that kind of stops you from moving beyond it and actually looking at what you can change. I mean, think about, for example, when you fold your arms like this. You do it automatically. You've been doing it for years. It feels absolutely organic. You don't have to think about it at all. You're stood there in the line and you go like that, and that's it. Or think about when you clasp your hands together like this. The same thumb always goes over the same other thumb, whether it's the right or the left. You don't think about it. It's organic. It's a habit. You've been doing it for years. So you put your hands together and it always goes like thus. If you try and do it the other way, it feels instantly uncomfortable. If you try and cross your arms the other way, it actually seems quite impossible. It feels really odd. And I think that's the aspect of change with judgment that I'm getting to. It's very difficult to create a real transformation when you do the things you do so organically. And when you're succeeding and you're at your peak in terms of performance and you're doing great at work and you feel like it's all going your way, a lot of the things that you're doing to instigate and maintain that peak performance are organic. You don't know how you're doing them really. You haven't broken it down. You haven't taken it apart. You just do it organically and it seems to happen for you. But then when things are on a bad streak and you feel like you're not showing your best side and your performance is very low and you just don't really understand why it won't come together for you, that's when you have to deal with the other side of the coin, is that a lot of your negative habits are also organic. You don't notice yourself doing them. You need to stand back. You need to break them down. You need to analyse them. You need to pick them apart. You need to have a look at their root causes, and that's very, very difficult when a negative attitude or a negative belief, a limiting belief that you have day after day is as easy and as organic as doing this. You know, what you're asking yourself to do is this. You're asking yourself to willingly change, and that's difficult to do. You need to pinpoint and recognise that negative seed of thought that always gets you, that always brings you down, and then you need to persist with attempting to change it. And at first it can feel uncomfortable and you can feel out of your depth, but it is going to come together in a way that's going to make the whole experience of working better. It's just a case of accepting that our habits are very, very organic, very automatic, and it can be sometimes difficult to pick them out of a line of things you do in the day and say, that's what I need to change. That's what I do over and over again. I should all over myself, or I go too quickly, I try and push too much onto myself, or I don't have the attention to detail that I need to have. That's where it is. That little thing snowballed into me having a bad day, and I do that so often, and that's what I need to change. The magician I selected because he's a master. He's a master at his craft, and he's also the symbol of pure will. Whether it's raw, whether it's got a direction yet, he wants to manifest something, and he has the intention to manifest something. He's a magician, so he's technically putting together a spell, and he wants to weave that energy and direct it to manifest something specific, and he is adept at that. And what I think about work when it comes to the magician is the idea of making a spell, or if you're not that way inclined, you can think about perhaps baking a cake or something like that. Something that requires an intention, ingredients, and a certain way of doing something so that it all comes together to create something whole, something as it was meant to be. If you look at the idea of making a cake, for example, or crafting a spell, you have the certain ingredients and, you put them all together in a certain way. You follow the recipe book, or maybe you've done the spell before and you follow it in your book of shadows, and you know that it's going to achieve the result that you want. You're maybe not sure to what degree, but you understand that there's a process, there are ingredients, there's stuff that goes into making it a success. And the same is true when it comes to your work performance. You must be able to look back at a time in your life where you actually peaked at your performance in what you do. And I'm not necessarily talking about, the overwhelming passion you feel for what you do, because as I said, you may not be climbing the career ladder. I'm not with my job, but I still I like to enjoy and feel the enhancement of my own performance. I like to do well at work. I like to treat it as any other part of my life would be treated. I like to treat it as an opportunity and as a chance to manifest my intention, and as a chance to learn more about myself and progress in a way that's going to give me a greater understanding of myself and the world. So, that's how I get through work, really, is by adopting that kind of attitude. And within that attitude, I have an understanding that when I'm at my peak performance level, there are certain ingredients that go into that. When I'm not working at my peak performance and I don't feel I'm doing as well as I should be, it's probably because one or two of those ingredients are missing. And again, like I said with the judgment card, often when we're making this cake, we may have made it so many times that it comes organically to us, but we need to open the recipe book and look through the ingredients and the process, because if we're making the cake and it's coming out flat and crappy, then some of the ingredients are missing or the process is wrong. So take a snapshot of the last time that you were at your peak performance at work, the last time that you really felt you were on a winning streak, everything was going right for you and it was all going your way. Then try and break that down into the ingredients. What was going on at that time? What was going right for you? Were things more pleasant in the outer world than they normally were? Did you have some kind of plain sailing and that enabled you to, bring forth your positivity at work? Was it that you were just able to be more positive and more satisfied? Maybe you felt that you could exert some kind of energy that would pass over onto other people. Maybe you had some praise or some great feedback and it gave you that little jolt, that little jump start. And maybe you need to offer yourself some great feedback to put that ingredient back into the mix. Every time you're at your peak performance, there are certain ingredients going into making that possible. Even though you may not be able to find those ingredients at first, they are there. And if you're low on your performance at the minute, or you don't feel satisfied at work, you need to have a look at one of those snapshots of a time before when things felt better, and have a look at what actually went into that cake or went into that spell to make it manifest so positively for you. The Ace of Pentacles is about a new beginning. It's about that fresh energy. It's that new thing. And the reason that I selected the Suit of Pentacles for this was because obviously the Suit of Pentacles pertains to work and career and money, finances, that kind of thing. And I just thought I would select this card because it's coming up to the new year, and I know that a lot of people are enjoying selecting and kind of exploring their New Year's resolutions at the moment. And a great many pagans, of course, have had Samhain pass, which was Witch's New Year, and that also instigated a meditative time where we could contemplate what needed to change and what needed to be done away with so we could move forward positively. I think the Ace of Pentacles is a representation of the need for change that comes from a place of excitement and comes from a place of embracing the new. And even though it's coming up to New Year, you do not need to only have this one chance to change things in your work environment. You can write resolutions at any time in your life. So if you are watching this in June 2013, get a notepad out and start writing resolutions. It doesn't need to be New Year for you to do that. It can be any old time you feel like it. Let it come from a pure place, and let yourself enjoy it. Today, during my work conference, the performance coach was saying that we should do the 100-day challenge starting from the 1st of January 2013. And the 100-day challenge is just basically challenging yourself to do everything that you can to enhance your performance and help your teammates to enhance their performance in the first 100 days, so the first 3 months. And then after that, reflect on what the first 100 days has given you and reflect on the changes that it led you to through just consciously deciding that these first 100 days of the year are really going to be something special, that you're going to explore and challenge yourself in your job, and you're going to have a look back over the 3 months at the end and kind of review. So I think that's great as well, because if we think about what's going to happen throughout the extent of an entire year, it's almost, the magnitude is too large. I always like the idea of small, manageable, rational goals that can be realised. And the other reason that I enjoy small, manageable goals is that they can be broken up. So there are chances to regularly give yourself credit, to regularly praise yourself. If you have a goal that stretches over 12 months, then there's not really any chance to kind of sit down and review and explore and give yourself a pat on the back. If you have small, manageable goals that go over a few months at a time or a month at a time, then at the end you can give yourself a reward for trying that and for pushing yourself, So there needs to be time for regular rewards. You need to be giving yourself that carrot and a little bit less of the stick. So these are just some cards that I thought reflected some of the things that I've discussed today in the conference with the performance coach, which was great. And I hope that some of the messages from tarot have helped you. And if you have any feedback, please post it below, and much love to you all.